Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and you know what? I woke up early at the crack of dawn this morning, and I realized, why am I playing video games? Why am I building like a good computer when I'm getting excited to play a video game that released 25 years ago, boys? You know, I was walking around in kindergarten when System Shock 2 dropped, and I'm playing a remaster of it. You know, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time, and you know, I look at this game and I'm like, man, it's got a lot of good gameplay. You know, it really holds up. And you know why I think it holds up really well? It's because this is from an era where, like, I think video game developers really gave a shit about making cool, new, innovative experiences. And nowadays, I really feel like a lot of the gaming industry plays it really, really safe. But see, I don't have an issue with video games being too safe. You know, I don't really care if a video game is made for the masses. That's not my problem. What I do care about is if it runs well. Now, this is a 25-year-old game. You know, it runs exceptionally good on my computer, as it should. This game should be able to run on butt plugs, all right? With, like, basic, like, processors on them, all right? Like, this should be able to run on anything, okay? Whatever. But what about modern games? So this is a game called Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, this isn't an old game. It's 28th February 2025 is when it dropped. And I'm sure some of you guys played it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's sitting at 14% of its reviews in the last 30 days have been positive. Why is it that one of the most beloved Capcom franchises is fucking overly negative? Wow, why is that? What's going on here? Now, this is a pretty simple answer to the question. Why Monster Hunter Wilds, you know, peaked at 1.1 million when it dropped, and it's now sitting at around 4,733 players. We are talking crypto levels of drops here, okay? Losing like what, 95% of your fucking audience in the span of less than a year, ladies and gentlemen. Literally just like a few months, if we're going to be completely honest here. And again, a lot of it just comes down to the fact that they really did just drop a dog shit product. Now, to give you an idea here, Monster Hunter World, which is a great game, I highly recommend this title, that has more players than a recently released Monster Hunter game. Now, there's a lot you can criticize this new Monster Hunter game for. Some would say maybe it's a little bit too easy, Muta. Maybe it just kind of plays itself. Maybe it's just a little too casual. No. You know why it's getting negative reviews on PC? It's because they released a broken fucking game on the computer. So, ladies and gentlemen, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm just going to answer this question really easily for you. For instance, if you scroll all the way down over here, this is the system requirements for the game. And we're just going to have a quick, like, litmus test. Okay, this is a test to see if you have functioning brain activity. We're going to see what the problem is with the system specification sheet. Now, for a minimum system, okay, you need a i5 processor, which is fine, okay? It can run all the way down to an i3, 1100. For a GPU, minimum is a GTX 1660 graphics card, okay? That's fine. That's fine. Now, the game is expected to run at 1080p. Is that native? No, upscaled from 720. So imagine having 720p and upscale that shit, probably not even through DLSS. We're talking like a purely software scaler, because that's a 1660. And it's going to look like the most blurry shit imaginable, okay? There are VHS tapes you can find that might be sharper than the image generated for this game. Now, of course, you might be like, well, what's the frame rate like here? 30 frames under the lowest graphic settings, okay? So we are, you know, a lot of people use really offensive terminology like, man, this is like welfare gaming. Bro, this is crack den gaming is what it is, okay? This is Skid Row gaming at this point. You probably shouldn't even buy the fucking game if that's your system settings, right? You might as well just play System Shock 2, because that'll run on this system just fine. Now, what do they recommend here? They recommend a RTX 2060 Super, okay? Super, sir. Very super. What is the performance here? The game is expected to run at 1080p. Okay, just 1080p, not even a little bit over than that. Just strictly 1080, okay? Which I guess is fine. 60 frames. You're like, okay, that's fine. That's cool. With frame generation enabled. under the medium graphic settings. Not even high, not even about frame generation to even get to the 60 FPS, okay? So we're talking you run the game at 30, and then you generate a little bit of that fake frame bullshit, and you get all the way to 60. Now, given the fact this is a 20 series graphic card, this is not even actual NVIDIA's DLSS frame generation. This is like other software level frame generation. So if you think the latency is bad underneath the NVIDIA version, just wait until you fucking play with software generated like frames, okay? Or just like without any hardware support. It's even worse. And this is coming from somebody that has personal experience with this type of shit, okay? I played through Cyberpunk 2077, fully maxed out with frame generation, and I'll tell you, it was a okay experience, but I'm not gonna fucking sit here and lie and say that there was not a goddamn ounce of input lag. I can only imagine how bad it gets with 30 frames being fake framed to 60 with actual, like, just pure software solutions. So look, anyways, this is not like a fucking technical breakdown. This is just a sign to show you that if you read this spec sheet and you still bought this game, for, by the way, the off-sale price is 90 Canadian dollars, then you're an actual fucking idiot, okay? I'm sorry to say, you fucking lick Windows is what I'm gonna put it out, okay? You actually unironically sipped .com if you unironically bought this expecting good performance. Now, I remember back during the beta for this, there was a lot of performance issues right there. And every single, like, comment that I would read that defended this game was like, it's a beta. Come on, it's a beta software. They're gonna fix it down the road. You might get a patch. You know, how many times are we as gamers gonna look at the words beta software and just not immediately, like, translate that into our head as demo software? Like, you really honestly think that, what, a couple months away from release, that beta software isn't just, like, a close to the final build option? Like, yeah, there's gonna be performance changes, but if it's playing like if it's playing like a fucking diarrhea-ridden senior citizen at a retirement home in the beta, dog, it ain't gonna turn into an Olympian by the time it actually releases. Let's be fucking honest with ourselves. God damn. Now, again, the reason for me making this video is not because, like, you know, I'm mad necessarily at the gameplay for Monster Hunter. Actually, I think the gameplay is pretty cool. I think some of the casualization they've done might be a little bit overboard. But generally speaking, it's a pretty sick open world game. The problem is if it actually works at a playable frame rate. Now, the thing is, Monster Hunter World is not the only game to release an unoptimized dogshit version of their product, okay? We as gamers, like, especially if you were back in, like, 2007, 2008, like, that era of PC gaming, with the DRM, with the shitty technologies that would be released at that point, yeah, it was a bad time. But shortly after, I would say towards the tail end of PS3 360, I think we started to get a little bit better when it came to the PC gaming support. But now, I swear to God, I think we've regressed to the point of, like, 2004, 2003. I think we've regressed to a point where one would even question, why build a computer? Why even build PC gaming? In fact, why even go out and play some of these games on consoles when they're just as bad at times? Like, if you look at games like Mind's Eye, even if you played that shit on a PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, you were still getting a dick in the ass one way or the other, okay? It's just, maybe on one platform like the PC, you could get the dick in the ass at 60, 70 frames, whereas on the others, it's just gonna crash no matter what, okay? It is what it is. But this is the thing that I don't get, okay? Capcom has not released this standalone by itself, okay? This is a long-running thing for a company like Capcom. I distinctly remember with Dragon's Dogma 2, excited for that game, super duper ready. PC version ran like dog shit, and it still runs like dog shit. In fact, aside from Resident Evil, their games unanimously run like hot garbage on the PC. And this is the biggest IP they have. This is the most selling game. You would think out of any game that they would develop, this would be the one that gets all the attention. Again, I don't care so much about the content issues. I don't care about the game balancing. I'll let an actual Monster Hunter diehard explain that, okay? That's their realm. But I do care about this from, like, the consumer perspective. They are selling an actual broken game, and then they have the balls to slightly complain about the fact that, you know, these companies will just say, Man, nobody's supporting our games. Nobody's buying any of these products. Maybe we have to shutter these IPs down the road. Looks like gamers just aren't interested in Monster Hunter, so to speak. It's not that gamers aren't interested. How is it that companies are actively just still releasing the most broken software that you could ever imagine? All without like ever expecting. I was remembering like with Mind's Eye when it came out, like a few days after it released, even the company behind it was like, oh my God, guys, we are absolutely shocked that the game is having performance problems. How? How do you not run this at your offices and come to a realization that maybe we should not release the game? You know, I really feel like games have a first, I guess you could say, like impressions mentality. Like if your release and the subsequent weeks that follow it are not good and gravy, your game is going to absolutely die and wither. And it's going to take a lot of effort. Like we're talking Cyberpunk 2077's No Man's Sky level of effort and commitment to even try and turn that around. Like those games are kind of the exception. They are certainly not the norm in this industry. Now again, to go to Monster Hunter Wilds, like it's a game that looks pretty, but again, I just played through, like, I didn't finish Death Stranding 2, but I've played like probably 20 to 30 hours now of that game. And I'll tell you right now, without half the technologies this game is relying on, like ray tracing and frame generation, somehow that game not only looks sharper, but better than what's going on here. And I know somebody's gonna go, but that's an open world that's really dead, Muda. It's got nothing going on. And I'm just gonna tell you, brother, that's a holy cope right there if I've ever heard one. Not only does Death Stranding have actual like combat to go up with, but it's also running this game at a higher average resolution than the PlayStation. Now, from what I understand, Monster Hunter Wilds is running at around 1080p, and it uses upscaling technology to get to whatever your display is. But on performance mode, it can drop as low as like 720p. So again, we're kind of touching at worst those PS3 level like resolutions. But it runs smooth because we had to crank everything down to the point where it's literally at least 2 generations behind what it should currently be. And that's not okay. Like that's not an answer to anything. That's not how optimization works. Optimization works when you look at your engine and you look at the limitations of that engine and you think, okay, if it's really successful at a slight open world at best Resident Evil game, how do we make sure we can achieve it with this seamless open world that is Monster Hunter? If you can't manage to make that work, then maybe delaying the game is an important part, because if it doesn't work well across the board, and this is just, again, I want to stress, it's not just a PC thing. I think the turnout on console isn't even that good either, right? And I played this on a PS5. It's not exactly the craziest good looker. If anything, during battle, it can get smeary. The only reason I ended up even buying it on PS5 in the first place is due to the fact that it runs at a better overall a frame rate. And unlike PC, I know that at least the stutters here were going to be non-existent, as opposed to a stutter problem that is still a huge issue across modern PC games. Art of actually optimizing your game has become completely dead and ridden, okay? I'm not gonna blame, certain technologies entirely, even though I just kind of did with ray tracing. There's still a lot of good games that drop with these technologies, like Cyberpunk, that do take advantage pretty well. But at least when it comes to companies like Capcom, something with their engine, something with how they implement this stuff just does not fly. And it hasn't flown since this game dropped in February, and if anything, they just actively refuse to fix any of this. Like, they're not even releasing any meaningful content for a game that's supposed to have meaningful content drip-fed months after the game's release, but it doesn't even matter. They could release the greatest boss fight, they could release the greatest amount of content with this game, but if you can't actually play it, even under the most expensive computers in the market right now, because this game stutters, when your game shits itself more than somebody with chronic loose motions or something, like on a daily basis, then it doesn't matter how good of an update you release or how great of a boss fight that comes out. That is something that I think needs to be addressed. And I feel like for a lot of gamers that have spent money on this and are just actively complaining, I really feel like the best way I guess you can kind of do with this is probably raise a stink, or maybe not even buy another expansion that's coming out this way. There's a reason why I didn't even buy this game on PC, and it's simply because I knew the writing on the wall that Capcom did not care about releasing a proper product. And even on the PS5, like, it's not perfect, but at least it's far better than the stuttering messes that you could get on PC. Again, It's just a baffling reminder as to how companies create this kind of stuff, and then they don't bother fixing it. And then down the road, there's complaints about gamers not being interested. Like, Doc, can you blame the actual gamer here? Like, can you blame somebody that came home, spent like their hard-earned money, and then got treated to a piece of software that cannot even properly function across all sets of hardware? That is the stuff we need to be talking, man. And I'm not even getting into the entire discussion of things like DRM, like de novo, which limits me from using this game across multiple sets of actual like hardware, all because that's just their arbitrary restriction. Like, bro, if I want to run this on multiple computers or even try to run this on my Steam Deck, as stupid as that idea is, I should be allowed to, simply because I bought my game. I should be allowed to just connect to the internet, since I already signed into my Steam account actively. I should be allowed to run this game all day, every day. Why is it that not only are they selling me a license, but they're selling me the most invasively annoying license imaginable? You know, this is one of those things where, like, I've just been watching it from the sidelines. Like, I'm somebody that has tried to really get into Monster Hunter, and I play Monster Hunter. Like, it's not that I don't. I've been playing this franchise since the PSP days. I just have not been like the most active player, but I thought that was going to change with Monster Hunter Wilds. It unfortunately has not. And if anything, it's the one game that for a lot of my friends who do actually play this, especially my friends on the PC, it's just one of the most awful experiences out there. And you know, it'd be one thing if this was a free-to-play game, but it is not. It is a fucking full-priced release. And they just won't fix it. It's actually insane. Anyways, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. Man, I tell you what, dude, gaming is... Buy good games like System Shock 2. They're not only cheaper, but thank God they run better. Even if you want to play something recent, buy the System Shock remake, man. Buy Shadows, buy anything else. Just don't buy the PC game made by a multi-million, billion-dollar company. Somehow still can't manage to optimize it at all. Insane.